to work, it just becomes the starting point for more concessions, is the impression.
Absolutely.
All right, Lana Payne, always appreciate the time. That's the national president of Unifor, Lana Payne. David Patterson is Ontario's representative in Washington. We had a very good conversation a few weeks back, walking us through what it is the Americans wanted, and it's spelled out on that meeting you're in, David Patterson. How do you fit what we heard today into your understanding of the president's goals now?
Well, I think we've been expecting this day, and it's a monumental day globally, as the Prime Minister said, and also caught Lana's remarks. And there's obviously huge concern and work to be done with our steel and aluminum and other industries. But there's also some good news in terms of the work that we've been doing, and certainly the work that Premier Ford's done with Secretary Letnick and others. And it really has rested in the Premier's argument that USMCA compliant companies should not be getting tariff application in the same way that others that are not USMCA compliant.
Right.
We saw that in three ways today, and I think it's important to call those out because I think they are victories for Premier Ford. One is, and we've seen this previously, that there's been a significant sort of reduction for Ontario's auto sector in that the application of tariffs is only on the portion that is not U.S. content. And because our automakers do have 50% content in Ontario, that gives a very significant relative competitive.
Does that mean a 12% tariff, as you understand it, Dave Patterson? Is that how you see it?
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about there?
12.5.
Yeah, okay.
12.5. And so effectively, if you've got the tariff is only applied on the non-U.S. Content of the vehicle, and those vehicles, all five makers, will have 50% content. So effectively, it gives us in the range of a net 12.5% tariff. But then in addition to that, very important, we have the continuation of the USMCA compliance, again, exemption for the fentanyl tariffs. We were very worried that if we had a stacking of that 25% tariff as well as the auto tariffs, that could be curtains for our auto sector, but we didn't have that today. Same argument from Premier Ford. It should not be, USMCA compliance matters. And then USMCA compliance, thirdly, got us a 0% tariff on the reciprocal tariffs when we see others getting 50%, 46% around the world. So again, on a relative basis, this is significant progress, but lots of work to be done. There's questions to be figured out with regard to auto parts, which are duty-free still at the moment. We have to figure those out, and obviously lumber and steel and the others, but it started with that discussion here in Washington between the Premier and Secretary Letnick.
But David Patterson, and I've got to get the Flavio Volpe before I run out of show. It tells you how much things have changed. We're looking at a 12.5% tariff on cars as relief and a victory with the level of disruption that this has caused. When you're in a free trade agreement, you've had the auto pact for decades. The hit to the global trading system right now is also going to be felt in Canada. So there's a lot of difficult times ahead just because of those other actions today.
Yeah, no question. And we've been hearing that from President Trump for 2 years. So we should be prepared. And it doesn't mean we like it, and it doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to try and renew the USMCA eventually. But in the short term, we had a crisis that would have cost us our auto sector, and it won't now. You'll hear concerns from the parts industry in Canada. We understand that. We want to make things better for them as well. But for those that are really driving the jobs, it's the major automakers that do that, and then parts follow. So this is, for the Ontario economy, a very good step forward.
Okay, well, David Patterson, we appreciate that. Still a lot of uncertainty there, a lot of things to be figured out. How do you administer these tariffs that require this dissection of cars? But at least it wasn't another trade bomb today directly related at Canada. So David Patterson, the Ontario representative in Washington. Thanks, sir. We'll check in with you again, I think, throughout this week. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, standing by is Flavio Volpe, who is the president of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association and also a member of the Prime Minister's Council on Canada-U.S. Relations. Flavio Volpe, David Patterson feels relatively good today about what this means for the auto sector. How do you and your members feel with what happened today?
Well, David sounds a little confused for someone who was in the auto sector before, because take off the IEEPA border tariffs and this reciprocal business today that has USMCA exemptions. You still have steel and aluminum tariffs on also derivative parts, which may be steel and aluminum auto parts at 25%. We don't know because this administration is going so fast. They said CBP will figure it out on a piece-by-piece basis. And I can't believe I just heard Ontario's representative in Washington say it's a good thing that we only have 12.5% tariff in an industry that is 6 or 7% profit margin. That's both sides of the border.
Right.
We get everybody USMCA compliant, David, because we say, if you don't, you got to pay 2.5%. 2.5 on 6 is so tough. Everybody's USMCA compliant.
12.5 is debt, though. 12.5 is losses, right? You're losing money.
12.5 is gonna close the industry on both sides of the border, like the Ambassador Bridge blockade did. And that's not just me. That's S&P Global. That's Cox Automotive. That's Wedbush. That's Lana Payne, who knows the auto industry because she's in it.
Mm-hmm. So I have to ask you, while I've been doing this sort of roller coaster ride for the last hour and a half, I did look at what you posted on Twitter, and this has to do, or X, whatever you want to call it, has to do with your understanding of when these tariffs will come in on the auto parts, and you put May 3rd on the table as a key date. Like, do these not come in at midnight on Kuzma parts and cars? What happens between now and the 3rd of May? Walk me through that.
Well, the context here is these guys are making it up as they go. So what they said was, and this is in the text that they just posted in their proclamation, they said, all cars are subject to a 25% tariff now, all imported cars, regardless of where they come from. Until they figure out how to get the U.S. content tracked, and they've said that Commerce and CBP will work on that over the next 30 days. So on or before May 3rd.
Right.
Until then, automotive parts that are USMCA compliant are exempt. And then they also said within 90 days, the parts that we haven't already listed, and you'll see in that annex, powertrain components, really major ones, we'll be able to articulate all of them, but we need 90 days. Well, they could also just pull the chapter and the automotive rules of the USMCA, which they have in their hands, and they pass as legislation. So when people say, well, auto parts are exempt because they're USMCA compliant. Well, they're exempt for 30 days or less. Right. And half of the parts that we make in Canada are put into vehicles that are made in Canada that won't be sold to the US because one of two things will happen. American buyers aren't going to pay 25% more, or the industry's going to shut down. Pick your poison.
Okay, so I followed this as closely as I think any journalist, and my head is spinning trying to figure this out, that they've pushed this off again, essentially. This is like another pause with another threat based on more work being done. But the way you explain it, I've compared this to vivisection of a car to try to figure out which part you're going to tariff and not tariff. This seems the juice would not be worth the squeeze. This would be such a burden to administer and deal with, and the economic knock-on effect of it would be so severe. There is no point in doing this if you're the United States. Am I misunderstanding the administrative burden and the economic fallout?
You're right.
Okay.
Right now, every car company knows, and it's public information, how much of the content in the car they make is American. So today, every automaker says, okay, this one's 10 points, this one's 12 points, this one will be 15 points. All of which is a multiple of their profit. And you can't lower the price or squeeze your suppliers to get it cheaper. The way a surtax or a tariff gets administered is you have to cut a check as the importer of record, right, to CBP. So who's coming up with that? Maybe tomorrow they will. Maybe the day after they will. Maybe for a couple of more days while they beg the White House to try not to embarrass the president. But at some point, on a publicly traded company, if you're booking losses that are in the millions at every assembly plant, and that's what we're talking about, $3, $4, $5, $8 million a day per production plant, you have a fiduciary obligation to your shareholders not to burn their money. We're not China. These are not charities.
Yeah.
We don't. The mint isn't going to print you more money. You're going to run out. So you either have to stop production, or you have to run and get an emergency stay in court, or do both.
This, I'm looking for a word I can say on television, Flavio Volpe, in the 30, this is nuts, in the 30 seconds we have left. Like Mark Carney, when he came out and said, this is going to fundamentally change international trade. And it may be an understatement in terms of what the fallout of this if the U.S. goes ahead with everything.
You know, what's more to say? I had a meeting of the Canada-U.S. Prime Minister's Council, and we all said, okay, let them put everything on the table so that we can do all the math, just to know how badly they've just hurt themselves and their own economy. And then let's come up with a response without reacting. And that's where we are.
All right, Flavio Volpe, I'm out of show. There's a whole lot more to talk about, and we're going to call you again because we'll hear what the Prime Minister has to say tomorrow. And thanks for being here. That's Flavio Volpe with the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association. I'm David Cochran. Thank you for watching Power and Politics. We're going to be back in 22 hours, and who the heck knows what's going to happen between now and then. But as for now, Hannah Mansing Tonight is up next on CBC News Network, so stay tuned for more coverage on this from Ian and his team. Thank you.